My name is Jill T. Lewis, and I'm 34. I used to think being the dependable one was something to be proud of, like it made me steady, like it made me safe in my own family. But the week I found out they were taking a dream vacation through Italy without me, on my money, I realized something I didn't want to admit. Being dependable wasn't love in their minds. It was a resource. It hit me when I saw the email confirmation. It wasn't even supposed to come to me. Melanie must have forwarded it by accident, or maybe she got careless, or maybe she just assumed I'd never push back. It listed everything, the dates, the travelers, the itinerary, and it felt like someone punched me in the chest. I sat there rereading it, waiting to see my name tucked somewhere at the bottom like a footnote. It never came. Not my name, not my daughter Ava's, not my son Luke's, just my mom and dad, my sister Melanie, her husband Josh, and their 2 kids. That was the family they had in mind, the one that mattered. 6 months earlier, Mom had floated the idea during one of our usual Sunday dinners. She said she'd always dreamed of doing a big family trip. She wanted the kids to experience Europe while they were still young, and she mentioned Melanie and Josh were strapped for cash. She asked if I'd be willing to help cover the upfront costs, and she said she'd settle it later. I said yes, of course. No hesitation. I'd just landed a big consulting contract, and I wanted to do something meaningful for the family, something that would bring us closer. I paid for the whole thing, flights, hotels, rail passes, the works. And then they cut me out of it completely. I didn't confront them right away. I waited for Sunday because that's what I always did. I waited for the moment when we were all in the same room and they couldn't dodge me with silence. They were all there acting like nothing had happened. Mom served baked ziti like it was just another weekend. Dad talked about golf. Melanie sat there smiling like the knife hadn't already been twisted. Josh laughed too loud at Dad's jokes, like volume could cover guilt. My brother was there too, hovering at the edges the way he always did, involved enough to benefit, distant enough to deny responsibility later. After dinner, I brought up the trip, casually, like I was offering them an easy off-ramp. I said, Italy sounds beautiful this time of year. The silence was immediate, thick, coordinated. Mom looked at me and said, next week is just special. You being there would ruin that. My dad leaned back and added, you're too different now. No one disagreed. Not one of them spoke up. It was like they'd rehearsed it, like they'd decided I was a complication they didn't want in their photos. I felt my hand close around my fork, and for a second I thought I might say something I couldn't take back, but then something in me went still. I clinked my fork against my glass, not hard, just enough to make the sound cut through the room. Duly noted. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for an explanation. I didn't beg for a seat at a table I'd been financing like a fool. I stood up, thanked my mother for dinner, kissed my kids' heads, and took Ava and Luke home. Ava asked me in the car if Grandma was mad at us. She's old enough to read faces, old enough to sense when something ugly is happening, but still young enough to believe love is supposed to be automatic. I told her Grandma wasn't mad, that adults sometimes get stressed, and that we were going to have a good week together. Luke had already fallen asleep in the back seat, his mouth open, his hair stuck up, trusting the world in a way that made my chest ache. When we got home, I helped them get ready for bed. I checked Ava's homework folder. I signed Luke's permission slip. I listened to Ava tell me about a friend drama at school like it was the most important story on earth, because right then, it was. I tucked them in, turned off the lights, and stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the quiet settle over me. My boyfriend Ethan texted me a simple, "You okay?" I stared at it, the normal kindness of it, and felt a strange pressure behind my eyes. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to be soothed. I wanted clarity. Once the house was quiet, I got to work. Everything was still in my name. Every hotel room, every pass, every transfer. They hadn't touched the billing. They didn't even have the courtesy to hide their arrogance. I logged into the travel portal and started reversing charges one by one. Flights, hotels, rail passes, the private vineyard tour in Tuscany, dinner reservations at places you have to know someone to even get on the wait list. I froze the travel cards. I locked the accounts. I canceled the airport transfers. I sat there in the glow of my laptop, feeling almost detached, like I was watching someone else's hands do it, like I was finally doing something I'd been building toward for years without admitting it. And I didn't stop there. I called every hotel and explained the situation. I canceled the airport car in Rome and the vineyard tour in Chianti. I flagged the rail passes as stolen. I changed login details on anything they'd ever had access to. I left no trace of the trip ever being theirs. Not because I wanted drama, but because I wanted finality. If they wanted to erase me, then I could make the entire fantasy disappear with a few clicks. By 7:42 the next morning, Josh sent the first text. Unblock the account now. The way he wrote it, it wasn't panic yet. It was entitlement. It was the same tone they used when they assumed I'd always fold. I replied, sorry, I'm too different now. Then came the calls from Mom, the emails from Dad. Melanie texted me a screenshot of her crying daughter and said I was being cruel, but I didn't answer. They wanted to make the trip about their family. Fine. Let them figure it out on their own dime. They still didn't know this was just the beginning. They strutted into JFK like they owned the place. First-class tickets, matching luggage sets. Josh even wore loafers with no socks, like he thought that made him European already. I saw it all on Melanie's Instagram story captioned, Ciao, Bella, with a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking. My chest didn't burn with rage the way it should have. It was colder than that. It was waiting. I knew the exact moment it started to fall apart. Their flight was set to board at 6:40 p.m. At 6:12, my phone lit up. A text from Josh, why are we being denied boarding? Then Melanie, did you cancel the flights? Then a barrage of calls, all ignored. It must have been chaos. 4 adults and 2 kids standing at the gate with stunned faces, trying to understand why a trip that was supposedly fully paid for suddenly didn't exist. I imagined Melanie getting loud, Josh pretending to be calm, my dad trying to flex some imaginary authority, my mom standing there furious, being told no by a stranger who didn't care that she thought she deserved yes. I sat in my kitchen with Ava and Luke and helped them make pizza from scratch. They didn't know anything. I wanted it that way. They still thought Grandma and Grandpa had to cancel their trip because something came up. Around 9:00 p.m., the text shifted in tone. Josh, you're acting psychotic. You're hurting your own family. Melanie, your kids will hear about this one day. I didn't answer either. I let the silence work. Then my dad sent a message that almost made me laugh. You've embarrassed us. You've gone too far, I replied. Hope it was still special. The next morning, I saw their car in the driveway. They were back less than a day after takeoff, defeated and exhausted. That's when I understood something important. Canceling the trip wasn't the end of it. It was the opening move, because the real game in my family was never about Italy. It was about control, about who pays, who gets included, who gets erased, and who's expected to smile while it happens. And now they knew I could change the rules. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw my mom standing there with no makeup and her hair pulled back, her expression flat, like she was here to negotiate with an employee who'd stepped out of line. She didn't start with an apology, not even close. She said, "All right, you made your point." She talked about wedges in families, about understanding, about how it wasn't fair to ruin something they'd planned for so long just because I felt excluded. Then she pivoted, smooth as breathing. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about the backyard. The contractor is still scheduled to start next month, and we don't want to lose the date. Your dad said you might be able to help cover the deposit. I stared at her, and what stunned me wasn't the audacity. It was how normal it was to her. Like money was the language we spoke, like love was just a transaction I'd always agreed to. She honestly believed I'd come around, that I'd feel guilty, that I'd write the check and apologize for not letting them use me quietly. I nodded slowly and said, "Let me look at my accounts. I'll let you know by the end of the week." She smiled like she thought she'd won something back, and she left satisfied. And that was perfect, because now it was my turn to play. The quiet after my mom left wasn't peace. It was strategy. I could feel the pause, the way you feel pressure in your ears before a storm. They were giving me just enough space to save face, not out of respect, but calculation. In their minds, I was probably sulking, regretting what I'd done at the airport, running out of steam. They assumed I'd come crawling back with a check and an apology, like always. They didn't realize something had finally broken in me, and broken things don't bend the way they used to. I didn't tell Ethan everything right away. I gave him the simplified version that there was family drama, that I needed space, that I was handling it. He offered to come over, to take Ava and Luke out for ice cream, to distract them. That should have warmed me. Instead, it made my throat tighten because it reminded me how unnatural my own family's love had always felt. Ethan's care didn't come with conditions. My family's did. My family's care came with invoices. On Thursday, the first feeler came in. Melanie texted like she was messaging a coworker. Hey, Mom said you were thinking about helping with the backyard thing. Just let us know so we can confirm with the contractor. There wasn't even a question in it. No warmth, no shame, just that blank family tone they always used when they needed something. Like I was a bank with feelings they didn't have time to account for. I left it unread for a couple of hours, not because I was busy, but because I wanted them to feel the gap. Then I answered, still sorting some stuff out. I'll let you know soon. Soon is a dangerous word. It sounds like yes, without actually being yes. It keeps people hopeful. It keeps them waiting. They'd used it on me for years. I was just learning how effective it was when you turned it outward. That soon turned into tomorrow, then the day after. By Friday morning, Mom sent a longer message. Contractor needs the deposit today to hold the schedule. We're trying not to lose the fall install window. Can you confirm? I wrote back, I might be able to send half. Let me check with my bank. I didn't check anything. I watched the message land, and I could almost picture Mom exhaling like the world had snapped back into place. Jill will pay. Jill always pays. Saturday, nothing from me. Sunday, still quiet. Monday, Dad called. I watched his name buzz on my screen and let it ring out, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I didn't want to give him the comfort of my voice. A minute later, the text came. We're not trying to pressure you. Just need to know what's happening so we can plan. I texted back, totally get it, should have an answer soon, and I let that soon stretch again. Wednesday afternoon, Melanie sent a voice memo. I didn't even listen. I just stared at the waveform like it was a lie, drawn in sound. It was probably her pretending to be nice, pretending to understand, pretending this was all normal. Later that night, I finally replied, talk to the bank today. Small issue with a flagged transaction. I think I can send it by Friday. That was the hook. The one that made them circle another date on the calendar with hope. The one that kept them polite a little longer. Friday came and passed. No payment, no message. Saturday morning, Dad wrote, we told the contractor we'd handle it ourselves. Don't worry about it. Then a separate one from Mom. If you still want to pitch in later, every bit helps. I could feel the frustration under those words, not because of the money itself, but because I wasn't doing what I'd always done. Rescue them, smooth it over, make the uncomfortable go away, and now they were stuck with the discomfort. That night, Melanie sent a photo. Their backyard, patchy grass, a few white flags marking where a patio might have gone. She captioned it, still hoping to make something happen before the weather turns. It wasn't a photo, it was a leash. A guilt hook disguised as a progress update. I didn't respond. I just stared at it until my eyes felt tired. The space between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was growing on purpose. A week slipped by with nothing but silence. Not a single message from Mom, Dad, or Melanie. No polite nudges about the backyard. No updates about rescheduling the trip. Just nothing. It would have felt peaceful if I didn't know them so well. They weren't moving on. They were regrouping, waiting me out, trying to make me feel like I was the one who walked away from the family, like I was the one who caused the fracture. They needed that to be true because if it wasn't, then they'd have to look at what they did, and my family has never been good at looking at itself. Then something came in from left field, a text from my cousin Erica. Hey, just checking in. Grandma's really upset about the Italy thing. You okay? It stopped me cold. Grandma hadn't been mentioned once in this whole mess. She lives alone in Albany, hasn't traveled in over a decade. She's the kind of person who sends handwritten thank you notes and remembers everyone's birthdays. She always stayed out of family drama. If Grandma knew, it meant someone wanted her to know. I asked Erica what Grandma was upset about. Erica wrote back, Melanie told her you canceled the trip out of nowhere and made them lose thousands. Grandma's confused, and thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. So that was it. They were already rewriting the story. I was no longer the woman who footed the bill and got excluded. I was now the unstable daughter who sabotaged a wholesome family trip. Of course they would twist it that way. They always controlled the narrative. Until now. I called Grandma. She answered right away, voice quiet but heavy. "Jill," she said, like she'd been holding the name in her mouth for days. "What happened, honey?" I didn't dramatize it. I didn't vent. I just laid it out, clean and simple. How they asked me to pay months ago. How they planned every detail without me or my kids. How I found out by mistake. How I brought it up carefully and they told me I'd ruin it just by being there. She didn't interrupt once. Not even a small gasp. Just silence on the line, the kind of silence that means someone is listening with their whole body. After a long pause, Grandma said, "That's not what they told me." She told me they said I refused to go, that I got angry, that I canceled the cards in a fit. I told her that wasn't even close. I told her I would have gone, that I would have smiled for photos, that I would have swallowed my pride if it meant my kids got to see Italy with their cousins. I told her they didn't just cut me out. They cut Ava and Luke out like they were nothing. Grandma went quiet again, and then she said, "I'm so sorry, Jill. I don't know what's wrong with them." That was all I needed to hear. Not because it fixed anything, but because it confirmed I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. They had really done it, and someone outside their little circle could finally see it clearly. The fallout came fast. An hour after that call, Mom texted me, "Did you just tell Grandma some twisted version of events?" Then Melanie, "You're making things worse. She's old, Jill. She doesn't need stress like this." Josh chimed in too. "This is toxic behavior, Jill. You're turning people against their own family." I read each one and felt something settle in me. Not anger, not sadness, just a clean kind of done. They had excluded me, lied about it, tried to manipulate Grandma, and now they had the nerve to accuse me of being divisive. So I replied with one final message, sent to the group chat with all 4 of them. Effective immediately, I'm stepping back from helping financially. No more vacations, no more renovations, no loans, no "we'll pay you back" texts. If I'm too different to be part of the family, then I'm too different to fund it. Best of luck with the backyard. I hit send and put my phone down. No one replied that night, not because they were shocked, but because they finally understood I meant it, and because they were already deciding what their next move would be. About a week after I cut them off, Melanie called me out of nowhere. Not a text, not a passive-aggressive message disguised as concern, a full phone call. I watched it ring until it stopped. I wasn't ready to hear her voice pretend nothing had happened. She left a voicemail that almost made me laugh with how upbeat it was, like we were catching up after a vacation. She said she'd been thinking about what I said and that maybe we should all get together soon. She even added, "The kids miss you," like that was supposed to undo months of silence and years of expectation. Like it was some magic phrase that would flip a switch and make me fall back into line. A few days later, Mom sent me a picture. A stack of cheap patio stones dumped in their yard. No workers, no progress, just a mess. She wrote, "We're still going to try and make it work ourselves. Found a good deal locally." It was a move. Subtle, careful, designed to say, "Look how hard we're trying without you," while still leaving the door cracked open, just enough in case I wanted to crawl back through it with my wallet. I replied, "Looks promising. Let me know if you need help hauling." That one sentence did exactly what I knew it would do. It cracked the door open just enough for them to walk right in. Mom followed up with a long paragraph about how every family goes through seasons and how she hoped I knew money wasn't why they wanted me around. She said we all just got a little lost in the middle of planning and that maybe it was time for a reset. Melanie messaged me separately and said she'd been feeling off ever since the airport fiasco and wanted to reconnect. No pressure. She asked if we could grab coffee next week just to talk. No expectations. Even Josh joined in. Josh, who usually stuck to one-word replies or passive-aggressive emojis. He texted, "I think I overreacted. We all did. No hard feelings." It was impressive, honestly. A full pivot, like a rebranding campaign rolled out overnight. Suddenly, I wasn't toxic. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't too different. I was valuable again. Useful. So I decided to give them a taste of their own medicine. I told Melanie I'd love to meet, picked a date and time. She sent a little heart emoji back and even said she'd buy. The morning of, I canceled. Said something vague about a work call running long. She was disappointed, but polite. Totally understand. Let's reschedule soon. We didn't. A few days later, Mom asked if I might be able to chip in a little for gravel delivery. Just $300 to help cover the shortfall. I said I'd check some things and get back to her. I didn't. Dad mentioned they were looking into firewood delivery for winter and said the supplier they used last year raised prices. I told him to send me the link and said I'd see what I could do. He did. I didn't. And every time they followed up, I responded with the same tone they'd used on me for years. Polite. Vague. Warm enough to keep hope alive. Empty enough to promise nothing. Let me look into it. Things are a little tight right now. I'll circle back. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being familiar. It worked better than I expected. Melanie went silent first. She stopped replying to even the basic texts. Then Mom's messages got shorter, more spaced out, and then stopped altogether. Josh unfollowed me on Instagram. Dad didn't send his usual happy birthday group text to the whole family when October rolled around. That one was weird. He'd sent that message like clockwork for over a decade. Seeing nothing felt louder than any argument. The strangest part was that they couldn't say anything about it. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't cursed. I hadn't told them off. I'd just become them. The version of them I'd known my whole life. All promises, no follow-through. All surface, no substance. And for the first time, they were the ones on the outside of it. Thanksgiving came the way it always does. Sneaking up while you're still convinced it's barely October. But this year, my phone stayed quiet. No group text from Mom. No passive-aggressive reminder from Melanie asking everyone to RSVP. No forwarded message from Dad that barely counted as an invite. It was the first time in my entire life I wasn't invited, and they made sure I knew it without saying a word. I didn't ask. I didn't send a, "Hey, what's the plan?" text just to pretend I wasn't waiting for one. Instead, on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I saw it all play out online. Melanie had gone full Pinterest. A long table set for 10, pumpkins as placeholders, handwritten name cards, napkins folded just right. She captioned it, "Grateful for the real ones." Every chair was filled. Every plate had a name. Mine wasn't one of them. Neither was Ava's or Luke's. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a miscommunication. They made a choice. I didn't tell Ava and Luke anything. We made our own dinner, not turkey. They voted for homemade mac and cheese and waffles. So that's what we did. We ate on the couch, watched old movies, and laughed so hard I forgot what day it was. For a few hours, the absence didn't hurt. It felt light. A few days later, I ran into Erica in a grocery store parking lot. Same awkward half smile. "They didn't invite you," she said, even though she already knew the answer. "Nope," I said. "First year." She nodded slowly. Melanie told Grandma it was just simpler this way. Less tension. That's how they framed cutting me and my kids out completely. Like we were background noise they could mute. Like the problem wasn't what they did to me, but how uncomfortable it made them to look at it. Christmas came next, and I didn't even bother checking my phone. The only photo I saw was from a neighbor who follows Melanie. Matching pajamas, 5 stockings, hot cocoa. I zoomed in, curiosity getting the better of me. The stockings had names. None for my kids. No Ava, no Luke, no mine. Not even an extra one at the end, just in case. They weren't just excluding me anymore. They were erasing us. At first, I won't pretend it didn't hurt. Anyone who says they don't care about being erased by their own family is lying, or numb, or hasn't let it sink in yet. There were moments, small ones, where it hit me sideways. Standing in line at the pharmacy and seeing a grandmother fuss over her grandkids, passing houses lit up with decorations I used to help pay for, hearing coworkers talk about chaotic family holidays, and realizing I wasn't part of any chaos anymore. I was just absent. But the pain didn't stay sharp. It didn't spiral. It cooled into something quieter, steadier. Distance. Not bitterness, not anger. Just a clean, emotional silence I didn't know I was capable of. And once it settled in, it was strangely peaceful. By January, I stopped checking my phone for their names. I stopped bracing myself every time a notification buzzed. I took Ava and Luke to Seattle for New Year's. Just us. No planning committee. No family group chat. We walked through Pike Place in the rain, watched fish fly through the air, rode the Ferris wheel, even though Luke pretended not to be scared, and stayed in a hotel with a fireplace and robes that made Ava laugh so hard she couldn't breathe. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't documented for anyone else's approval. It was real. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I didn't feel left out. I felt free. Funny thing is, that year was my best financially. Without the constant leaks, the quiet expectations, the emergencies that were never really emergencies, my accounts finally stayed full. I landed 3 new clients. I closed out a nightmare project that had been dragging me down since the year before. I had more money sitting untouched than I'd ever had in my life. I could have bought Melanie's entire backyard twice over. I could have paid for the Italy trip again and upgraded every seat. I could have handed them a blank check just to prove a point. Instead, I installed a heated driveway at my place and started planning a summer road trip with my kids. No approval required, no explanations owed. They stopped inviting me, not because I changed, but because I stopped accepting their rules. I stopped making it easy to use me and ignore me at the same time. And once the money was gone, once I made it clear nothing else came with it, not silence, not forgiveness, not a smile, they didn't know how to treat me anymore, so they didn't. 2 months passed. February came with gray skies and frozen mornings, and that's when the envelope arrived. Plain, no return address, just my name written in my mom's handwriting. Shaky, like she wasn't sure she should be sending it. I stood in the kitchen staring at it longer than I want to admit. I could have tossed it unopened. Curiosity won. Inside was a folded letter and a check. The letter was short, 2 paragraphs. The first said they were reaching out to repair what's left. The second said the check was for my share of the Italy trip since I didn't attend. It was for $3,600. I laughed. Out loud. Not because of the amount, but because they still thought this was about money, like they could refund my absence, like they could tie a bow around that week and pretend nothing else came with it. I didn't cash it. I stuck it on the fridge with a magnet and let it sit there, a quiet reminder of how differently we spoke the same language. 3 days later, Josh texted me. Just 1 sentence. "We need to talk." I ignored it. Then Melanie texted, "Grandma's in the hospital. She asked for you." That one made me stop. I called the hospital, confirmed it was true. Mild heart issue, nothing critical. But she'd asked for me twice, so I drove up. When I walked into her room, Grandma smiled like no time had passed, like we hadn't skipped 2 holidays and a dozen family functions. We talked for an hour about books she was reading, weather, memories from when I was a kid. Then she looked at me and said, "Don't let them write the end without you." I didn't know what to say. I didn't promise anything. On the drive home, I stopped at a diner and sat in my car with a coffee, staring at the reflection of the dashboard lights on the windshield. That check sat in my mind like unfinished business. That night, Melanie called again. This time, I answered. She didn't waste time. She said they wanted to reset everything, that maybe it was time for a real talk. She didn't apologize, not exactly, but she said the kids had asked why they hadn't seen Ava and Luke in so long. She said maybe we should all get together soon. Then she said the part I didn't see coming. Mom and Dad were talking about selling the house. The money from the sale, she said, might go into a shared account for family needs. She called it future-focused. She said they were hoping I'd help contribute to build something stable. I didn't respond. I just ended the call. The next morning, I mailed the check back. No note, just the check. Mailing the check back felt quieter than I expected. No dramatic release. No surge of victory, just a sense of alignment, like something heavy had finally clicked into place. I dropped it in the mailbox on my way to work and didn't look back. By the time I got home that evening, my phone was silent. No reaction, no explosion. That silence told me everything I needed to know. They weren't shocked. They were recalculating. A week passed, then another. No calls, no messages, no accidental likes on old photos. The family threads went dark. Birthdays came and went without the usual group text reminders. The house eventually sold, I heard through Erica, who delivered the news the way you deliver weather updates. They bought a smaller place outside the city. No one invited me to see it. No one asked for my opinion. No one asked for help. And I realized something strange. I didn't feel rejected anymore. I felt released. I don't think they hate me. I think I scared them. Not because I yelled, not because I demanded apologies, but because I stopped playing. I didn't bargain. I didn't threaten. I didn't try to win. I just left. I stepped out of the role they'd written for me and refused to audition for the rewrite. And people who rely on leverage don't know what to do when it disappears. Grandma recovered quickly. I visited her once more before she was discharged. She squeezed my hand and told me she was proud of me, though I don't think she knew exactly why. Maybe she did. Maybe she saw what the rest of them refused to. That boundaries don't erase love. They reveal it. Ethan asked me one night if I missed them. I thought about it before answering. I told him I missed the idea of what I thought we were. I missed the version of family I kept funding in my head. But I didn't miss the reality. I didn't miss the conditional warmth. I didn't miss the silence dressed up as peace. Life settled into something simpler after that. Mornings without dread. Evenings without bracing for a call that would ask for something disguised as concern. Ava and Luke stopped asking when we were going back to Grandma's house. They stopped noticing the absence because it wasn't constantly reopened. Kids adjust faster when adults stop dragging wounds through the room. Sometimes I think about Italy, about how easily it could have gone differently if they'd just told the truth, if they'd said they wanted a couple's trip, if they'd said they didn't want me there, if they'd said anything honest at all. But honesty would have cost them comfort, and comfort was always the priority. The last message I ever got from my family came months later, from my mom. One line, "Hope you're well." No question mark, no invitation, no accountability. I read it once and didn't respond. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. I didn't lose my family. I lost my position as their safety net. And once that was gone, everything else fell away with it. What stayed was my peace. What stayed was my kids' laughter in rooms that felt lighter. What stayed was the knowledge that no one gets to erase us quietly anymore. They stopped inviting me to protect their comfort. I stayed gone to protect my life.